I felt like the Pistons were going to compete for this 8th spot all year, and they're there, but every time I watch them, I walk away wondering just how good they are. Now, like I said, that Milwaukee game the other night, they were thoroughly outplayed for the majority of it. And part of that is the Bucks starting to look like the team that we thought they were going to be in the preseason. But, Detroit had a lot of calls have to go their way for them to get back into it. I think in the NBA report that they released, there was something like 6 blown calls in the last couple minutes that helped Detroit come back. I think it was 2 fouls not called on Reggie Jackson, 1 not called on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. On the game-winning tip-in, they didn't call a violation on the pass where Tobias Harris moved like 2 feet. Andre Drummond got away with it. Like, it took every possible, mess up between the Bucks and the officiating for Detroit to steal that win in a game they shouldn't. Like you said, they've got a lot to play for right now, and they're not playing. I didn't think they were playing all that well, and they don't have the shooting. I'm just not sure they're there yet. I think they make a move or two this summer that makes them a lot better, finding some more shooting on the wing, improving that bench, but I'm not as high on them right now as I thought I would be going into the season if you would have told me they were at this point. They were in the 8th seed coming down the stretch, so I'm just not big on that team.
Orlando and Miami, a Sunshine State battle tonight. Miami is an 8.5-point favorite for this one. The big story here for Orlando, who, they've dropped 5 straight, looked pretty bad in the process. Although they had a couple close games against the Cavs and Raptors and Celtics, then they just ran out of gas against the Pistons. That was, I believe, 4th game in 6 nights, 3 out of 4 on the road. Now they're on the road still, but it's in Miami. But without Nikola Vucevic, this is just not a particularly good offensive team at all.
Yeah, I'm not big on Orlando right now, and I kind of wish that Scott Skiles would just let the young guys go here. Play Aaron Gordon, 30 minutes a night. Play Mario Hezonja a bunch. Just let those guys go, because at the end of the day, they don't need Brandon Jennings and Ersan Ilyasova to get a bunch of minutes, because those are guys who don't factor really into the future. So I wish he'd do that. He won't. I don't see a way that Miami doesn't win this game by double digits. They're playing really well tonight, like you said. Orlando's offense is basically all Victor Oladipo having to have a big game right now. So I'd probably roll Miami, and I'd expect them to win this one by double digits at home.
So we'll move on to a game that a little bit more near and dear to your heart. That's Milwaukee taking on Atlanta. The Bucks, 8.5-point dog in this one, but a miserable spot for the Bucks. They play 5 games in 7 days, all 3 in the middle here on the road. So tricky situation for Milwaukee here from a fatigue standpoint. Is this one going to play out the way I'm alluding to?
I'm not sure. The one thing the Bucks have kind of done at points is play good teams close, or play teams close, and then fade at the end. They'll take a lead through 3 quarters, and then the 4th quarter, everything kind of bogs down and becomes a mess, and shots start missing. The big thing with them is they're still trying to kind of figure things out. They've looked more like the team we thought they would, but down the stretch, after using Giannis as the point guard all game, they tend to just kind of force the ball into Chris Middleton's hands and let him be an isolation guy. They played Miles Plumlee over Greg Monroe, more minutes earlier in the year. Now they're going back to Monroe, trying to figure things out. So there's a lot of exciting in a way going on with Milwaukee right now, trying to get ready for next year, find who needs to be brought back, who needs to get more minutes, that type of thing. Damian Inglis is up playing now off the bench instead of Rashad Vaughn, who's down in the D-League. So I think Atlanta should win this game probably by around double digits, but it also wouldn't surprise me all that much to see Giannis come out, have a monster game, keep the Bucks close late, and then see them fall by, 5, 6, 7. It could go either way. I think the fatigue, like you mentioned, is a big thing, especially for a team that's lacking shooters in a way right now. I mean, O.J. Mayo's out for the rest of the season, so in the rotation, guys you can trust to knock down threes is basically Chris Middleton, Jared Bayless, and, Tyler Ennis hits one every now and then, but there's not a ton right now. So I could definitely see fatigue, coming into play and costing the Bucks. And I just think the Hawks are way better and playing really well right now. So I kind of think you're right. I think this one may not be particularly close.
To clarify that situational spots, the fourth game in 6 nights for the Bucks, fifth game in 7 nights comes tomorrow at home against Charlotte. If you give us a little bit of a look ahead for that game, obviously a back-to-back for both of these teams, longer travel for Milwaukee because Charlotte's coming in from Detroit. But how do you see that spot setting up for the Bucks?
Yeah, I think that's going to be an even tougher one than tonight because, like you said, the travel's a big thing. The Bucks have a lot of young guys who necessarily haven't been in this spot yet. I mentioned Damian Inglis is coming off the bench and playing a lot, but he didn't play all that much. He didn't play at all last year, I don't believe, and hasn't played all that much this year. Jabari missed all of last year. Now all of a sudden he's this late into the season, so I tend to think that that'll go much the same as I kind of expect tonight to go, where unless Giannis is superhuman and keeps them hanging around, Charlotte kind of wins that one fairly convincingly. I think they'll do enough ball movement-wise to get some open threes, and they'll be able to knock them down, and the Bucks won't.
Toronto and Houston tonight, interesting game here to be sure, because you've got a Houston team that has a high ceiling, and they seem to have no interest in reaching it on a nightly basis. Toronto, this game opened to pick them, but they're getting some love here in the betting market. They're a -1 favorite at several shops out there. From a matchup standpoint here, does Toronto have an edge?
Yeah, I like Toronto. I like everything they do. That's a team I really think has got a lot going their way right now. So they've had made some interesting decisions lately as far as resting guys. I know DeRozan was out when they played Milwaukee. Kyle Lowry was out their last game against Boston. So they're starting to kind of get prepared, I think, make sure guys don't wear down. But I trust them so much more than I trust Houston, that you could have given me Houston, +3 or 4, and I probably still would have gone Toronto. That's a team that's going to come out every night and play hard, which you don't with Houston. So I trust Toronto so much more that I'm going to go with them every time.
I think it amazes me that this Houston team, just 19-16 at home, that's the worst home record of any team currently in a playoff spot. In fact, there are several teams outside of the playoff picture that have been better at home than Houston has. And then Toronto, as you mentioned, every night this team comes to play. They're 20-14 on the road, and travel's not a very easy thing for them at times. You got a little bit of a longer delay, having to deal with TSA and all those types of things flying in, and just a little bit more of a travel hassle for them, and none of it seems to faze them a whole lot. So, I think this Toronto team deserves a lot of credit for what they've done on the road this year.
Absolutely. That team, and it's full of pros, guys like Lowry, DeRozan, Louis Scola. It's just guys that what you're getting from them every single night. DeRozan's made an incredible leap this year. He's been great all year. Lowry, now that he's kind of slimmed down, has been wonderful. So I think that's the biggest thing. You can trust their best players every night to show up, to play hard, and to give you what you need. And that's a big deal, again, compared to Houston, where you're never quite sure what you're getting from James Harden. You're never quite know what you're getting from Dwight Howard. So I think that makes a big difference, and it's a part of why Toronto's been so good and so consistent all year long.
I'm going to skip over this Memphis-San Antonio game because I just don't think that there's a whole lot of intrigue to it. As I said, I read somewhere, you can confirm this for me if you've seen it, but San Antonio is expected to rest a few guys tonight, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it was Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green, Patty Mills, and Boris Diaw, I think was the list. It makes sense. Memphis, they've got maybe 2 or 3 NBA caliber players right now with all the injuries. They're calling guys up from the D-League and starting them. San Antonio is going to win that one big, even resting all the guys.
All right, so Phoenix and Sacramento is a little bit different of a game because you've got a Phoenix team that for a little while there, they were still playing very hard. They've got guys that are interested in, trying to get some playing time for next season. And, of course, who knows what will happen with the coaching situation here for the Suns. But they're still playing hard. They go up against a Sacramento team that's dropped 8 of 10. And, everybody knows about the soap opera that's gone on there throughout the year. But Sacramento's a touchdown favorite here tonight, laying 7.
Yeah, that's one of those games I kind of stay away from just because, like you mentioned, Sacramento, it's a mess right now. Darren Collison earlier this week talking about, coaching staff not doing things and players not doing things. And after so much of the year that being really just DeMarcus Cousins, now it seems to be a bunch of guys. So I'm terrified of everything Sacramento right now. It's a mess. I can't imagine George Karl making it through the summer as the head coach there. I wouldn't be particularly surprised if they start moving on from DeMarcus Cousins and move him this summer. So I think there's a lot of bad going on there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they laid an egg and Phoenix won. But Phoenix is pretty bad themselves, so it also wouldn't surprise me if just talent wins out. So that's a game I'm probably staying far, far away from, and watching the fireworks from a distance is something probably goes bad for one of those two teams.
So we'll look here at this one between Dallas and Golden State. Golden State laying 2 touchdowns. They're a 14-point favorite tonight. No look-ahead spots or anything for Golden State. They play Philadelphia on Sunday, which has the potential to be a massive bloodbath if Golden State comes to play. That should be one of the biggest spreads of the season. But, everyone knows the narrative about Dallas and how they can't beat good teams. They can't play with good teams. And this Chandler Parsons injury, I don't know. It'll affect them on the floor, of course. There's no doubt about that. But I think it may affect them more mentally in that, this is a team that already is probably questioning itself more often than not.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to play a major part. And I think the other part of it is he's their second-best player, and it's not particularly close, really. I like Wes Matthews a lot, but he hasn't quite been himself yet, which is understandable coming back from a ruptured Achilles. And so all of a sudden you've done all this kind of overachieving all year. You're in that playoff spot, then you start to struggle pretty badly, and then your second-best player is now gone for the rest of the season. And that's going to really mess with the team mentally. Even a team as experienced and with the amount of veteran leadership that Dallas has, it's going to hurt them for sure. In a game like tonight, Parsons is huge because if they did want to go small, he's the natural guy to bump down to the 4 where he'd at least give you some playmaking ability and spread the floor, bring you some defense. So this one's going to be ugly. This is one of those games that you look at Golden State's schedule and you see, all right, they'd only got to win this many to hit 73, and you start counting them out. As long as they win, I think it's every game besides the San Antonio games, and they're all very winnable games, they hit that mark. So I think Golden State comes out. They've talked about wanting to get 73. This one's going to be over pretty early as long as Golden State makes their shots, which for most teams that's a question mark. For Golden State, it feels pretty certain that one of those guys is going to hit enough shots to carry them to a big win.
The other 10:30 tip of the night, Denver takes on the Lakers. Denver 3-point road chalk at Staples Center. And obviously this isn't a game that's going to move the needle for a whole lot of people. There's not really a whole lot of intrigue to this game. But for me, I look at this game and I want to see Denver play well. I want to see this team develop into somebody that can, blow out these bottom feeders in the West and play tough against the playoff caliber teams.
Yeah, I've actually really liked a lot of what Denver's done over the last month or so. Emmanuel Mudiay is starting to kind of figure it out. Nikola Jokic has been really good. They're starting to play some different combinations of guys, get ready for next year, make sure that, you can play certain guys together, whether it's bigs or guards or things like that. So I've liked a lot of what they've done. It hasn't necessarily always shown up in the results, but part of that's the schedule they're playing. I mean, they got blown out by Cleveland, Atlanta, Miami. Those are really good, but you look and then, they beat Dallas, they beat the Knicks, the Suns. They're winning games they should win, and, every once in a while they steal a game you don't expect. The Washington one, they beat the Hornets a couple nights ago. So there's definitely good signs coming from Denver, and I think you're right. The next step is kind of blowing out teams like the Lakers, the Suns, those types of bottom feeders. So I liked a lot of what they've done. I think they're making good decisions as far as rotations go, playing younger guys, playing them a lot together. And I tend to think they beat up on a Lakers team that may be having some chemistry issues right now with some of the stuff that's going on off the court with them. And then, of course, you've always got the crazy Kobe kind of retirement stuff going on where it could be his final night at any moment now, and he's going to gun and put up some crazy shots and be Kobe, really. So it's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. We've got 11 games left in the Kobe Bryant retirement tour, 6 of them at home, including the season finale against Utah. That's really going to be the story for this Lakers team. And when Kobe doesn't